Hello and a very warm welcome back to the channel of nonsense, and we've got the brand new Kia Sportage. This is the 5th generation version of the Korean brand's Volkswagen Tiguan rival. I've already seen it in a studio a couple of months ago, but now I'm allowed to drive it, so I'm going to take it for a drive, do a walk around and tell you if this is the family SUV you should be buying now. Let's go. Yes, here it is. I just love how out of place it looks in the Surrey countryside. It looks like it's just driven off a motor show stand as a concept car. It doesn't look like anything else, but I really like it, especially in this green. Now, this is the first Sportage to be designed specifically for Europe, developed in Europe on European roads, etc, etc. So hopefully this will be the best one yet for us Europeans, and we do bloody love a Sportage, at least here in the UK. Now, this will cost a bit more than the old one. It starts from £27,000, but you want to spend about 30 grand to get a GT Line one, to get a snazzier, more digital interior, which I'll show you in a bit. There are lots of versions of this in terms of engines. There's a plug-in hybrid, which is the most expensive one. It's got 265 horsepower. It can do about 30 miles on a charge, but it will cost anywhere from £39,000 to £44,000, which is a lot for a Kia. This one here is the regular self-charging, I guess, hybrid with a very small battery. This one is about £38,500 because it's a GT Line S, which is top spec. But you can get an entry-level regular hybrid for about 33 grand. Are you still with me? And there's a regular petrol and there's a regular diesel, mild hybrid forms. But yeah, this hybrid one gets a 1.6 litre petrol engine, same as the plug-in hybrid, with 180 horsepower and an electric motor of 60 horsepower for 230 horsepower in total. It's got a 1.5 kilowatt hour battery, so that's a couple of MacBook Pros strapped together, so there's no real weight penalty, but obviously there are dubious advantages to having a self-charging hybrid. And let's just very quickly talk about something very boring, which is the fuel tanks. If you get the PHEV, it's 42 litres. If you get any of the others, they're 52 or 54. Right, let's stop talking about boring things. The looks. It is not a big car, but it is bigger than the previous one. It's 4.5 metres long. It's about 30 mil longer than the previous generation Sportage, and it's a smidge longer than a Volkswagen Tiguan. It's I don't know, I think it's just a cool, dynamic looking thing. I quite like this little line here, here's the finger of God, that splits there. I think it just looks pretty cool, and I love this colour. It's just green and nice and blends in a bit, although it does look a bit futuristic-y for this countryside. Now, Kia is very proud of the fact you can now get this on adaptive dampers, which adjust constantly to give you a comfortable ride, but you can't get them in the UK because it would have made the car too expensive. And secretly, I think they reckon regular buyers who buy this, family people like me, probably can't tell the difference, which is probably true. Across the back, you've got the new Kia badge. You've got this bold silver Sportage, or Sportage, or Sportage, however you want to say it. This is a GT Line S, as I said, to get a GT Line badge. This is a German one for reasons that I won't bother going into because they're boring. You get the traditional Korean brand beepy boot. God knows how many people in Korea have been crushed by self-closing boots, but it must be a lot to make them all beep like that. If you get a regular petrol or diesel one, the boot space is cavernous at 591 litres. If you do get the PHEV though, it's down to 540 litres and 587 on this hybrid one. So this hybrid one has 4 litres, or 5, is it 4? 4, I'm bad at maths, 4 litres less than a regular petrol one. Who's going to notice that? No one. All new Sportages have remote seat folding handles here, which are the most plasticky things in the world, but at least you can flip the seats down without having to go around the front. And you get 40-20-40 ratio split folding seats, which is really good. So you can flip the middle one down or the left one, or the right one, depending on how many child seats you've got in this. And I have actually put one of my child seats in this because I know that that matters to people who will be looking at this, hopefully. Let's have a quick squiz at the seats. As soon as you open the door on this, you do realise it's a whole lot posher than the old one. This is a top spec one, but you've got the suede like Alcantara there. This all looks and feels lovely, and oh my days, heated seats in the back, controlled there. You've got white piping on these leather seats, again, because it's a GT Line S version. That's a seat for a 2 to 4 year old, and look how much room there is. Admittedly, that passenger seat might want to come back a bit. You've got coat hanger things on the headrests, probably a German car thing, and a little holder thing there. You've got some climate controls, your backseat passengers. You've got genius USB-Cs on the back there, so your kids can charge their iPads and watch Frozen over and over again until you drive into the sea. And yeah, I'll hop in and show you how much room there is for an adult, but finding the ISOFIX points, there aren't any plastic covers, but they are really, really easy to find down there. And in the middle, you've got a center armrest with cup holders. Right, I'm a 6'3" man, or at least I'm trying to be, and I've got knee room behind my own driving position. That is quite hard plastic, so taller passengers will struggle a little bit, but headroom is pretty decent considering this has the panoramic sunroof, which always drops headroom by a little bit, but it lets so much light in here, I think it's worth having. Otherwise it can be a bit like a coffin in the back of cars. Big windows, don't feel claustrophobic, and this car has a bit of a trick. You can recline the seats. Oh yeah, they don't slide forward. They're not like the ones in the Skoda Karoq and the Kodiaq, which slide and fold. But yeah, these do recline, and wow, that's pretty comfortable. I'm almost feel like I'm in a first class cabin. So well done, Kia, on making very comfortable back seats, which I've just made very uncomfortable by making them more vertical than Nelson's column. Not his genitals. Anyway, right, let's look up front because it's all a bit fancy up there as well. Right, if I talk about up front, I should just say, since I've turned the car on, this seat has actually gone forward, so I've actually got even more legroom in the back. So unless you're 6'20", you'll be fine. Right, up front, it all looks very nice and very posh, and this, as I said, is a top spec one. So you've got this squishy plastic on the dashboard and on the door cards, and it all feels like you're in something German. It feels as posh as an Audi up here. It feels posher than the Volkswagen Tiguan, I dare say. I just like all the shapes and the doors and the vents. Oh, it's yummy. Right, flat bottom steering wheel. It's got buttons on it for all the active driving assist stuff, which you can turn on and off really easily. And this has got lane keeping assist, so all sorts of adaptive cruise stuff. It's very clever. It's got sensors all over it. And the display will show you your blind spot down the back of the car. So if you indicate left, that left screen will show you a little view from that mirror looking back down the side of the car so you don't crush cyclists, which is really cool. I'll cut in a shot of that so you can see it in action. You've got two 12.3-inch screens there. You've got one for the driver and one for the infotainment here. Now, base spec cars, I don't think get the digital one for the driver, so don't get the cheap one because they're kind of set in a curved panel and it just looks really, really nice. And normally I would bemoan the fact that there aren't any physical climate control buttons, but oh look, there are. You've got all these shortcut buttons here, and if you tap this, it changes that whole panel to control the temperature with knobs, and you can adjust all your airflow and everything. And when you want to go back to adjusting your sound or using your shortcut menus, you just tap this little button here. It's a dual purpose screen. It's really quite cool. You've got a pansexual collection of USBs down there. You've got USB-A and USB-C and a 15-watt wireless charging mat, which is about as quick as wireless charging gets. And also, I think those USBs are super fast charging ones as well. Gear selector. I wouldn't normally talk about a gear selector. This, to me, I think is metal. That silver rim, it feels cold, it feels posh, and I'm just blown away by how nice that feels. Drive mode selector, you twiddle it, you've only got Eco and Sport in this car, and if you click it in, because this is a four-wheel drive one, snow, mud and sand, you can adjust that there. I should have said, you can get this in all-wheel drive or front-wheel drive. This is an all-wheel drive one. But anyway, cup holders, they flick out with these buttons here, and then you can fold them away again, he says, like that, and then it all goes out of focus. And you've got heated and cooled seats. Yay, on a car that costs under 40 grand, and a heated steering wheel. It's all lovely stuff. Only niggle is that the wireless Apple CarPlay still doesn't exist, so you've got to plug in for CarPlay and Android Auto, which is a little bit last century. Right, that's probably enough waffling about the lovely interior of the new Kia Sportage. Let's take it for a drive and see if it's any good as a family car. Is it comfortable? Is it sporty? Will you set a lap time at the Nürburgring in it? No one cares. I'm not going to do that. Right, I've just bought the new Kia Sportage in my dreams, and I'm going to go for a drive. So I'm going to put my foot on the brake, hit the engine stop button, and it plays that classic Kia chime just to tell you that it's on. And yeah, basically, you go into gear, and this is the hybrid. So the engine's not started yet, which is magical. Now, Kia makes a lot about how this has been meticulously tuned, their words, for European roads, presumably also UK rubbish roads. And I have to say, it rides really, really well for an SUV like this. It doesn't isolate you from every tiny little bump, but it's just not going to get on your nerves, and that's the main thing. It's just going to get from A to B in pretty much complete comfort. And I've taken this on some really dodgy roads, and I've been impressed at how it rounds off the edges of sharp corners and bumps and things like that. And it is just very comfortable and quiet and easy to get along with, frankly. It's not a Rolls Royce, but it's good enough. Until that 1.6 litre petrol engine kicks in the hybrid version, when you put your foot down, the engine kicks in, it does get pretty raucous. And it almost sounds like a diesel at some point. I'll do it out of this junction so you can hear. But it does shatter the illusion a little bit, which is a bit of a shame. Revvy, revvy, thrashy, thrashy. Now, naturally, I am being a bit of a knob, but yeah, that doesn't happen all the time in everyday driving. But when you really do hoof it out of a junction, prepare to be a little bit disappointed, because it's at odds with this premium feeling cabin. So yeah, but if on medium throttle, being a normal person, it doesn't really get on your nerves and the revs stay low enough not to annoy you. Now, the hybrid and the plug-in hybrid, they both get a 6-speed automatic gearbox. The other petrols and diesels you can get with 7-speed dual clutch gearboxes, which will shift faster, and there's a 6-speed manual option as well on some of the cheaper versions. So you're well covered for gearbox choices. I forgot to mention, this is 4-wheel drive, this one. There are 4-wheel drive options on the hybrid, and the plug-in hybrid is only available as a 4-wheel drive. So yeah, thank you, Mr. Pickup Man. Let's do some off-roading. Probably a bit too much off-roading there. And there are different terrain programs for different types of environment, as I've shown you. And Kia's actually made a point in the press release of how good this is off-road if you get 4-wheel drive one. I would probably say it's best limited to a muddy National Trust car park, but whatever. Right, let's talk about other boring things. The view out the back is pretty decent. The C-pillars, when you look over your shoulder at the back corners of the car, are pretty thick, so it's actually quite hard to see out over your shoulder. But these windows are big, the mirrors are big, it's fine. But yes, this is one of those cars that you feel at home in very, very quickly. It's just easy to drive. It's not got any horrible vices, and it feels small enough around town when you're parking, parallel parking, to not be worried. And if you do get top spec one, it's covered in cameras, so you can see every corner of the car basically from a top down view. And it's just easy. Right, I'm going to do some dual carriageway stuff in a second. We'll talk about refinement and motorway speeds, and then we'll get on some twisty roads. So let's go to the dual carriageway now. I can't snap my finger and thumb together because my daughter's broken my hand. Yep. Have kids, it's great, they said. Now, as I said at the start of this video, I think, this is on an all-new platform, which means it should be more refined than the previous Sportage, and apparently be more dynamic-y as well, which means go around corners more battery, less crashy. And yeah, I've just gone around that corner quite fast, and now I'm accelerating from 50 to 70 out onto a dual carriageway, and that's 70. So yes, it's not rapid. It's fast enough, I would say. 0 to 62 in the hybrid is 8.3 for the 4-wheel drive. The front-wheel drive one's actually a bit faster at 8 seconds, but don't look at the spec sheet and see that this has got 230 horsepower and think that's hot hatch territory, because it's a lot heavier than a hot hatch. It's this heavy. I've forgotten to look it up. But yeah, performance is not startling. It's decent though. It's fast enough for anything. And the PHEV's got another 35 horsepower, so that'll be reasonably brisker. But again, it's not really set up for sportiness. All the hybridness is set up to be more economical, which is interesting, because I've been driving this reasonably efficiently and normally for the past 30 miles, and I've averaged 37 mpg from the hybrid, and I would say 50% of that was in 30 limits around town. it's not great. I would just stick with a normal petrol or a normal diesel one, to be honest. I wouldn't get the hybrid thinking it's going to give you 110 miles per gallon, because it just isn't. The plug-in one, which actually has a big battery, I think if you charge it up at home, charge it up at work, you'll be able to do 30 miles at least on electric power alone. If you can do that every single day, then you will get a million mpg, but not this regular hybrid. The plug-in one is probably the one to go for. Otherwise, just get the petrol or diesel, like I've said about 15 times. That blind spot thing is super handy. It's really cool. I should also talk about the fact that this is super bloody refined as well. That new platform, I don't know what Kia's really done, but 70 miles an hour back there, I barely any wind noise, barely any road noise either. It's actually really, really impressive. And this particular car is on winter tyres, which always make things a bit noisier and a bit lumpier. So God knows how quiet this would be if you stuck it on summers. But you know what they say, it's a German car, it's winter. Sie müssen Winterreifen benutzen! Right, less of that, more of the twisty road down here to see if the Sportage deserves that sport bit in its name. I'm not sure it ever has done, but let's find out. Right, I'm about to go onto my 6 mile an hour limit twisty road. I'd normally stop and do a launch control test, but I'm in a hybrid Kia Sportage. That feels as relevant as giving the Pope a Pornhub subscription. Anyway, let's just boot it from 30 and see how long it takes to get to 60. Oh, there's that horrible engine noise. That's 60 miles an hour. Now I'm going to put us into sport mode, which will change the suspension on this car. As I said, the British cars won't get adaptive dampers, which is, I guess, not that relevant to anyone really, but let's see how it goes around a corner. Oh yeah, it goes around a corner at 50 miles an hour, absolutely fine. It does roll a bit, it leans over a bit. It's not uncomfortable though, and it's not unlike any other family SUV. It's not trying to be a hard-edged sports car. It does grip, the steering is direct and accurate, which is pretty much all you need and all you want. And the brakes are really good, and they don't have that weird bit where it goes between using the physical brake discs and brake pads and the electric motor regenerative braking. It just slows you down as much as you think it would. There aren't the awkward head-butting the windscreen moments. It's just fine. I'm going to take it out of sport mode because I wonder if that's making the engine rev more than it should. Let's put it back into eco. Yeah, it's a perfectly good car to drive. I'm mostly impressed by how refined it is, how quiet it is, and how comfortable it is. It's good. It's 8 out of 10 on all of those things, really. It doesn't need to do anything any better. Anyway, back to you, Tim, for an outro. Right, so in conclusion, what do I think of the new Kia Sportage? Well, they've not messed it up. They would be very silly to have cocked this one up. It's one of their big sellers, but yeah, it's a brilliant, brilliant family SUV. I think it's perfectly comfortable, even this hybrid version. I think it's just pleasant to drive. It's easy to use. I love all of the tech. I do wish it had wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, and it feels like a bit of a miss that it doesn't have them, but otherwise it's spacious. It's got loads of room in the boot. It looks like nothing else, which in my books is a bonus. It doesn't look like another BMW X1 or something. So yeah, I would though not buy the hybrid. I would just get the regular petrol or diesel because it's going to be loads cheaper, and I just think it's probably a better thing. Now, however, I haven't tested the plug-in hybrid, which is really expensive, but if you live in town and do lots of short journeys, that might be the one to have, so do bear that in mind. Anyway, hopefully that's been helpful. Thank you for watching. If it has been helpful, hit like, and if it hasn't, then hit like anyway, and go down to the comments and call me a DMZ, and I will see you next time, and I won't be standing in a muddy lay-by with the most important Korean SUV of the past 5 years. Maybe I will, I don't know.